Sveiki, gerbiami žiūrovai. Čia vėl savaitinis ELTA Zoomas ir aš jo vedėjas, jeigu taip galim pasakyti, naujienų agentūros ELTA vyriausiasis redaktorius Vytautas Bruveris. Šiandien mano pašnekovas yra Ukrainos prezidento patarėjas diplomatiniais klausimais Igoris Žovkva. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So my first question would be about how do you see the dynamics of the support of the Ukraine in the West? I mean, of course, the election of Liz Truss as a new Prime Minister of United Kingdom of Great Britain was celebrated in Kiev. It went down in Kiev very well as a symptom and as the sign that at least the support of Great Britain of Ukraine will not be lower, but even will step up. But how do you see the whole dynamics in the West? Is it this support stepping up, or is it maybe in some kind of stalemate now?
Well, I certainly think that the general Western support is stepping up, maybe not that quickly as we could have wished, but it's certainly moving into the right direction and certainly moving into rendering more and more assistance to Ukraine in terms of weaponry and military equipment, in terms of financial support and in terms of sanctions support. Really, you started with the UK. Yes, my president had a phone conversation yesterday with the new UK Prime Minister, Madam Liz Truss, and really, from what we heard from her, she's very result-oriented, and she really is ready to render any support to Ukraine what is needed. She asked my president about this. So what else can the United Kingdom do for Ukraine? And certainly it will be discussed during the personal meeting between my president and Prime Minister of UK during her visit to Kyiv, because President invited her to pay her visit to Kyiv, which she accepted. But generally, I think this very good tendency with which UK is following, which US is following. You saw just recent announcement on the new assistance package up to $3 billion and the new initiative to have the new package, which was announced by President, is very important for us. Because if you ask me about weapon, it's still not enough. Though the flow is growing, the inflow is growing, but we still need many more heavy weaponry. We still need many more artillery shells, for instance.
What is the main problem? Why it is not going as a full-scale flow still? It is more like given by like a portions, like a doses.
Well, I think there are several problems or obstacles, and it's not like it's going deliberately. I mean, it's moving slowly. I mean, one of the problems is probably the countries which are helping to us is simply sometimes running out of the equipment we need, because we do not need just everything. Each and every country knows exactly the Ukrainian demands. Each and every Minister of Defense of each and every country has the list from Ukrainian side, what exactly we need and what amounts, and we never ask something which undermines the defense capability of the country. So it doesn't mean that we will want all the equipment, all the weapons, all the armors these or that country possesses. So a problem may be that the countries are running out of the supplies. Secondly, yes, there might be still a bureaucracy routine in some of the countries, and even if sometimes the political decision is made by the leader of the state, sometimes this machinery, this bureaucratic machinery is lagging behind, and sometimes we need to give a boost to this machinery. That's why our ambassadors in foreign countries are working actively. My president keeps telling to the foreign leaders and keeps reminding them about their promises. And it's moving slowly but gradually. So we are hoping this dynamics, this positive dynamics, will be only growing.
You mentioned the sanctions policy. I don't know, I do have, and some other people here in Lithuania and in other most supportive for Ukraine countries do have this feeling that the sanctions policy is, again, a little bit on some kind of pause. That there were earlier on, especially in the early stages of the Russian full-scale invasion, it was like more dynamics out there. Do you have the same feeling about this?
Well, if you are talking about the EU sanctions, I must say that,
for example,
and this position was given by our officials that, for instance, the last seventh package of sanctions was far away from our expectations. But it's good that it was adopted before the summer break in the European Union and the country members. Now that the summer break is over, we're actively working with the European Commission and already with the member states on the 8th of the necessity to establish.
And how is it going? How is it going?
Well, my president talked already with President von der Leyen, asking her to appear very soon with the proposals for the 8th package. You also well know that during the ministerial Gymnich meeting in Prague, the very important issue of abolishing the entry visas for Russians was raised, and partially the decision was made. I mean, this abolition of this visa facilitation agreement, which is good, but not enough. And we are hoping that these sanctions will be part of the next packages, as well as other important measures. Cut-off of all Russian banks, and Belarusian, by the way, as well, from SWIFT. Banning of, for instance, European countries' vessels entering the Russian ports. And others. I mean, there also should be need to have personal sanctions against those officials of Russian Federation, member of the ruling party, and members of the local governments or institutions or ministries or whatever. All of them are responsible for this aggression. Or further cutting off of Russian TV propaganda channels from being in the European Union countries' markets. But really, this visa issue is very important. I'm thankful for Lithuania for doing already what your country has done. And very important that, as I understand, the European Union has given the chance to the individual members to regulate this non-issue visa policy. You in Lithuania know very well how important to cut off the entry of ordinary Russians or tourists, you know, which sometimes come into your countries as tourists, but then turn into, I don't know, terrorists, you know, making the blasts or whatever, like it happened a year ago in Czech Republic, or having the organizing the protests, as we now see again, Czech Republic, in some German cities. So it's a matter of your security. It's a matter of security of the whole European Union countries. What has those Russian citizens to do now, coming from the country aggressor? So we will be pushing the Brussels institutions and the individual member states to have this ban on the visas.
But exactly this visa question and the decision and the decision on this question is the symptom that Europe and European Union, to be more specific, is still divided, deeply divided on general, on fundamental issues, on fundamental approaches to the Russian regime, to the Russian dictatorship, to Russia as the country as a whole. Another symptom, for example, is President Macron's speech when he said that European Union shouldn't take as a main narrative the narrative of such warmongering countries as Eastern and Central European countries. What I'm saying that there is you can see that still the West, the European Union and the West in general is still divided in the fundamental approach to the Russian regime. Are we going to the full-scale war till the end with this regime, or still we are like keeping, being reluctant on this and still keeping some windows on opportunities, not warmongering, etc., etc. Do you see like that situation? What can it be? What can change it?
You know, we always hear in Ukraine that European Union is proud of its unity. It's very important to preserve this unity. That's what we hear in Kyiv. And that's what they had vis-a-vis Ukraine when making these very important decisions on my country, like candidate status, for instance. I think Ukraine has united the European Union around, supporting Ukraine, and that's very important. As far as the, overcoming Russian aggression, we also want the European Union countries to be united, and everyone should understand that if we together will not stop Russian aggression here in Ukraine, it will come further, it will be spread further. And you in Lithuania, you know this very well. People in other Baltic countries know it very well. People in Poland know it very well. In Slovakia, and our immediate neighbors, Romania. What is left? Only to persuade your partners in the European Union with arguments and in concrete, figures and numbers that you cannot stay reluctant when the aggression is against all Europe. It's against one state now, it's against the state of Ukraine, but generally, and you should take the broader picture, it's against European values. Because someone doesn't want Ukraine, for instance, to be in the European Union family. Someone doesn't want Ukraine to be in the European future. Someone rather wants Ukraine to be in the Soviet past or in the USSR to zero, whatever. And that's what probably Europe doesn't also want. I don't think any European Union member country, be it far away in the west of Europe or be it in the center of Europe, want the restoration of the Soviet Empire in terms of Russian Empire. So that's why you have to take the broader picture. And that's why we all together, by we I mean Ukraine and our immediate neighbors, have to persuade that this unity around Russian aggression may bring a success. It's even logically not that costly, to give Ukraine enough weapons, to give another strong sanctions, to give the financial support, instead of waging a possible warfare on the territory of the countries.
I've mentioned Macron's speech which about war-mongering countries in European Union, which went down very bad here in Vilnius, for example, or in other surrounding and most Ukrainian supportive countries. But there was another speech of another leader, US President Joe Biden, who said that Russia shouldn't be named, shouldn't be called as a state sponsor of terrorism. If I remember his saying correctly. How did it went down in Kyiv?
Well, we will certainly, and my president is regularly talking to President Biden and will be talking to him, and definitely we will still talk over this issue with him and with his team, because we understand the importance of this step. We will also talk to our partners and allies of the US about the necessity of this step. Again, here I cannot give something very definite, but I think this issue still can be a matter of negotiation. Very important that the European Union countries should also be involved in this discussion. I know that there is quite another mechanism of decision-making in the European Union, but I think EU countries should also be involved. And EU countries should also be on the side of Ukraine in this discussion. So I don't think that the final full stop is put in this issue yet.
Well, let's talk about Ukraine and Russia. What I mean, of course, now it's all the things, the main things are up to Ukrainian armed forces, and diplomats now, as I understand the situation, are now a little bit like on the side, yeah. And now the main job is up to Ukrainian army. But when can and under what conditions and in what situation again can some kind of diplomatic or negotiational process start between Kyiv and Kremlin?
only when the territory of Ukraine is liberated and absolutely free of occupational armed forces, aggression, armed forces of Russian Federation, and when there is no shelling against the civilians of Ukraine. This is the prerequisite, which is, raison sine qua non. The same is going about, Ukrainian detainees, which are captured in the territory of Russia or the temporarily occupied territories. But right you are. The only negotiation which are going on between Ukraine and Russia are the negotiations on the battlefield. And if you read the latest statements of the Russian officials who are claiming that they are ready to renew the negotiations on the Russian conditions, you absolutely understand that this is totally not possible for Ukraine. Ukraine will never negotiate on the Russian conditions, on the aggressor conditions, or on any other conditions, any other partner conditions. Ukraine will only negotiate when there will be ground for negotiations, again, when there will be territory which is controlled by Ukraine. And Ukraine will only negotiate taking into account its own national interests. No one is able to dictate to my president when, how, and on what conditions start negotiations. Very difficult, if not impossible, to make a pressure on my president. So we are fighting on the battlefield. We are making our victory close, and that's for the time being our only preoccupation.
But asking this question, the things you've said, of course, they are obvious and were stated by multiple times by different top officials, Ukrainian top officials, and they are fully understandable. But at the same time, I just wanted to clear a little bit the situation. At the same time, we hear the statements of Ukrainian officials who are saying, and just saying obvious things, that Russia is a terrorist state, that there should be established international tribunal for Russian regime as Nuremberg tribunal. Actually, all these statements, all the rhetoric, which is now fundamentally like straightforward from Ukrainian side, that Kremlin regime is no longer like seen as a partner of any talks. How you should talk with terrorist state? Why? About what? So there's a little bit like it's not a contradiction, but you see what I'm trying to say. That there is like twofold issue, and I can't a little bit connect the things. From the one hand, Ukraine says that we will be ready under Ukrainian conditions after all territories are liberated for the dialogue with Moscow. On the other hand, they're saying that Moscow, in principle, fundamentally, is a terrorist, which shouldn't be talked with at all.
Well, very simple. I mean, it's one very easy solution to stop making terrorist acts. Really, right you are. Well, it became very difficult. I'm not a part of the negotiation team, but it became very difficult to talk to Russian negotiation team after all the world revealed the atrocities made in Bucha, Irpin, Gostomel, Borodyanka. Absolutely, it's not possible to talk to the representatives of the state which are doing the same such awful things. So, I mean, you should not ask me how to negotiate or not negotiate with Russia. If Russia comes back to the civilization, to the civilized state, it's possible. If Russia prefers to further make a terrorist act to shell civilian objects, to shell critical infrastructure, like the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, in the middle of Ukraine, in the middle of Europe, in the 21st century, you are shelling the biggest nuclear power plants in Europe. So if you are following this way, so you receive what you receive. And you should receive the same treatment from the rest of the international community. And that will be fair. That's why it's not up to us. It's up to them to decide whether they want real, serious, groundful negotiations, or they just making those statements out of propaganda matters.
Maybe the last thing I wanted to ask you about, it's about Russian energy war with Europe and blackmail of Europe, cutting off gas supplies to Europe. What consequences it will have, in your opinion? Maybe it won't divide even more Europe and force Europe to kowtow to Russia. Maybe it will consolidate Europe and consolidate the countries. I mean, absolutely adversary effect than that effect Kremlin hopes it will have.
I think it's already starting to consolidate Europe and European Union. Look, this was a unanimous decision to make these steps in order to cut by 15% the consumption of Russian gas already now, starting from 1st of August till March next year. And I see that European Union member states are already doing everything to have this. It was the unanimous decision of the European Union to get the gas storages, enriched by the level of 80% still before the winter is coming. And I think this matter is already reached. It's already the decision of many European Union states who are heavily dependent on Russian gas to start to diversify their gas supplies. And look, even immediate neighbors of Ukraine who are dependent on Russian gas are doing this. Yes, it will take some time, but you have to overcome this period. Yes, probably not only Ukrainian population will suffer during the winter time, but the population of many European Union states will suffer. But this is the price we have to pay for cutting off once and for all our dependence on Russian gas. Look, this gas and energy blackmail started not only after the open war against Ukraine started in February. If you well remember, they started to play with the gas prices last summer, for instance. Yeah. The prices were rising highly, and that was, the ringing bell for all of it. That should have been the ringing bell for all the European Union members. And you might remember that by that time, my president was telling to European Union leaders, look, Nord Stream 2 is having nothing to do with the energy policy or with economics. It has only to do with geopolitics, with blackmail. No one listened to my president. Look, where is now Nord Stream 2 project? And they are still playing with Nord Stream 1, repairing this turbine and then not returning it back. Everyone should understand, and I hope everyone is already understanding, that once and for all, we in Europe should cut ourselves off any Russian energy resource, be it coal, be it oil, be it gas. And having made this and having paid this heavy price, we will achieve this real unity which we are talking about, which will make Russia unable to blackmail us ever.
Thank you very much for the conversation. Good luck and victory for Ukraine.
Thank you. Many thanks.